everybody, and welcome to another video in my IELTS Learning Tips series. What I want to do today is address those students who are thinking about doing IELTS but maybe haven't started yet, because I've noticed recently a lot of messages and a lot of questions about how to get started. And I also suspect that there are quite a lot of you IELTS students who, although you have started, haven't really got a proper plan or a proper direction for your IELTS. So I want to give you a few pointers on some of the things that you need to think about when you first embark on doing the IELTS test. Now, before we get started, I just want to remind you that you can go to my website, IELTSlearningtips.com, where you can find more free resources and other things to help you with your IELTS. And there is a link below the video. And I would love you also to join me on Facebook, where I do put articles and a few more videos and things which might be helpful to you. And you can also find a link at the end of the slideshow. There's the address there if you want to join that. So just ask to join and I will welcome you with open arms. Okay, so let's get back to the topic for today, which is following your dream. Now, I know that anybody taking IELTS has a dream, and IELTS is quite important in that dream. And so I want to sort of point out to you why you shouldn't overlook the part that IELTS plays in your dream, because it's very, very significant, and how you can take as much time to plan your IELTS and make sure you get to the band score that you want, as you do to plan the other parts of your dream with your visas and your travel, etc., etc. So let me go through some of the suggestions I have for you about how to keep your dream alive when faced with IELTS, which can often be a big challenge. So it is the gateway to, I'm pretty sure, most of the dreams that you watching this video have. And a student recently said to me, it's like a magic key. And once you have that key, then everything opens up. Before you get that key, all the doors are closed. And I know this a lot from some of the doctors I've worked with, who find that nobody wants to talk to them about how to register or whatever until they've got that magic piece of paper. So it is quite important. So I'm sure that you all have your dream. It might be that you want to go for master's or PhD. It could be to further your career in another country, or maybe even in your own country, or in a different company or institution. It could also be that you're doing this for your family. I know lots of the students that I work with and that I meet, they are looking for a different life for their family. And you need IELTS to realize these dreams and to unlock these dreams for you. And you need to take it very seriously, because if you don't get the IELTS band that you need, it can cause a lot of problems. It can cause a lot of delays. And in some cases, it can cause people to actually abandon their dream, which is very sad indeed. So start taking IELTS seriously right from the beginning. I'm sure when you think about what you want to do with your study or your career, that you do a lot of research. You need to know the steps, how to get to this point. You need to know what papers you require for the visa, for applying for jobs, for getting registration for your particular specialism, etc. You probably know who you need to speak to, and you probably need to know the money that you will require in order to do this process. But what about IELTS? I find that a lot of people can tell me chapter and verse on everything they need to do for their immigration or their application to the university, etc. But the IELTS is a little bit of a fog. And I do see people saying, how can I get started? So remember, without it, often your way will be blocked. And that you may need 7 and 8. In fact, more and more, 7 and 8 is being requested. And it is not the easiest thing to do. I mean, Band 8 is very, very close to native speaker, which means your skills in English must be very high indeed to achieve this. And doing that all in one day, and one very stressful day, as I know those people who've already taken the exam can attest to, it is a very stressful day, which doesn't help. So you've got to be better than you need, really. So that's something you need to bear in mind. Do you know how to get there? Do you know where you are now? Do you know what you need to do in order to get to Band 7 or 8? If not, you need to have some idea about what that's going to take. Okay, I mentioned that before. Do you know how much work you'll need to do every day, every week? Do you know how long it's going to take you? I mean, a lot of people are very unrealistic about the length of time it will take them to get to band 7 or 8. And it's going to be months rather than weeks for most people. Okay, so these are the questions when you're starting out with IELTS that you really need to ask yourself. And that will enable you then to put in place a really good plan. How good is your English? Do you really know? It's a good idea to take a test. And I think there are lots of just general English tests available online. And I think there's one on my website that you can try, and it will give you a good indication of your overall English level. So from there, you may be able to calculate how much study you need. So I think on a ballpark, generally, if you look at the IELTS, I think it says about 6 months to go one band. So if you're coming out at band 6 and you need band 8, then it's probably going to take you about a year. Depending on how much study you do and which areas need the most practice. So roughly, but I would say you should allow for at least 6 months. Now, how much time? So we've said 6 months, and that would be regular study. So that would be doing something every week and probably every day. How much money? That depends on how you want to do it. Are you going to try and take the test just once? Or if you're one of those students that uses the test as their preparation method, it might take a lot of money if you take it 5-6 times. If you work with a teacher, look at the kind of teaching you want. Do you want one-to-one? Do you want to join a course? Do some investigation on all of that, and then factor in the amount of money you will need. Okay, so there's the cost of the test, which is I think around between $200 to $250. Then do you need to travel? Do you need to stay overnight? Some students need to go to a different city. All of that needs to be factored in. What kind of books will you need? Or are you going to try and do it all online? Some of the online material is excellent and some is really not very good. So you have to be very selective. Will you want to work with a teacher? And again, as I said, would that be a course locally? Or do you want to find a teacher online? Or do you want some one-to-one? Think about what's best for you. Do you have a deadline? Many students have a deadline. If you're applying for a university course, you will need to present your IELTS score at a certain time. So you need to factor that in. If the deadline is in 6 months, you need to get your skates on and start working. And when do you need to have that score? Remember, if you're doing the pen and paper, it will take a couple of weeks for the score to arrive. And then if you need the paper version at home, it might take a few more days for the post to arrive. So factor everything in and then work backwards. So if you need your result in a year, decide You know, I mean, start as soon as possible. The more you study, the better the chance of getting a high score. But don't leave it to the last minute, because leaving it to the last minute is a big disaster. And how long are you prepared to wait before you realize your dream? I know students who've taken the exam. I mean, I've worked with students who've taken the exam 10 times, 11 times, 12 times. I've spoken to students who've taken it 25 times. And that takes a lot of time, and all the time their dream is on hold. So really consider, how long are you prepared to wait? And if you find that it's not working, you're not getting to the scores, then I would advise you to get some help, to get some advice about the best way to move forwards. And I'm always happy, as I've mentioned before, to speak to students about the best thing to do. So if you want to have that conversation, then just send me a message and I'll tell you how we can do that. Okay, here is how you can get in touch with me, or be connected with the work I do around IELTS. So either the Facebook group or on my website, and there are links to both below the video. Okay, so I hope that has given you some food for thought, and I hope it's also focused your mind on the fact that in order to get your dream, you need to focus really seriously on your IELTS. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.